Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, according to National Electric Power Regulatory Authorities and NEPRA's 2022 yearly report, Pakistan total installed power generation capacity is over 43,000 megawatts, of which 59% of the energy chunk is straight away coming from thermal, that is the use of fossil fuel. Then again 25% is from hydro, 9% of the energy resource is from nuclear power plants, and only 7% of the renewable resource coming straight away from solar, wind and biomass sources. Climatologists have the view that over the last 3 decades, Pakistan witnessed 170% increase in the carbon emissions. And energy sector is one of them because of the use of fossil fuel, that is at least 59% in the whole energy mix. Pakistan has set an ambitious target of reducing carbon emissions by 2030, at least 50%, and subsequently the increase in the renewable energy sources from 30% to 60% by 2030. How Pakistan is going to achieve that ambitious target, along with that, what sort of seriousness we have into the policy making, either the regulatory frameworks are adequate, and what about renewable and alternative energy capacity and how we are enhancing it. What is the basically the urge behind that, and whether we are serious in that. At least CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, has given an impetus to the renewable and alternative energy because of lots of projects related to the solar, along with that the wind projects and the hydro projects as well. We will talk on that aspect as well. So to talk on this important issue, we have in our studios Dr. Khalid Waleed. He is the senior economist and he also have expertise into the environment and energy sector. So most welcome to you, Dr. Khalid. Thank you very much for your presence here. And along with him, Engineer Tahir Basharat Cheema. He is the senior energy expert and working with different organizations. Earlier on, he has an ample experience into the public sector related to the energy issues. So most welcome to you, Tahir Basharat Sahab, for being with us here online. Thank you very much for sparing time. My first question to you, Dr. Khalid, that as in intro I have, these are some of the reports which suggest that Pakistan witnessing 170% increase in the carbon emissions, and obviously when you will use fossil fuels into the energy sector, obviously that affect the climate as well. So just to get rid of these carbon emissions, the greenhouse gases, the fossil fuels and their expensive imports, obviously, why not we, if renewable energy or alternative energy is so clean, green, why we are not opting for that?
Well, just let me build a context here. Pakistan has multifaceted crisis. I call it as a 3E crisis of Pakistan. It is economy, it is energy and it is environment. And these 3 E's are interlinked in such a vicious cycle in Pakistan that economic turmoil bleeds into unsustainable energy choices, and unsustainable energy choices, they sort of bleed into environmental degradation. And environmental degradation through droughts, through extreme events, they sort of give loss to economic consequences. So this is a vicious cycle in Pakistan. We need to have this integrated sort of policy making. We need to integrate energy, clean energy and environmental consideration into our macroeconomic policy decision making. What is lacking in Pakistan? Just to give you an example, back in 2007-2008, when load shedding started to rise and there was 16 to 18 hours of load shedding, and a whole election was fought on the promise that we would be eliminating this load shedding. And to get rid of that accessibility crisis, government sought solution in terms of long-term PPAs, power purchasing agreements. We built coal power plants based on imported coal. We had those short-term solutions. We get rid of that problem of accessibility crisis. We get rid of load shedding. But that solution to accessibility crisis brought us to another crisis that is now we are facing. It is affordability crisis, where we have
because at that time might be that was the makeshift arrangement,
that was
and
the
because of
makeshift
that
arrangement.
makeshift arrangement, environmental and other problems arises. Definitely, you are
affordability
absolutely
crisis.
right.
We have capacity payments, we have exponential increase in tariffs, and now for that affordability crisis, we are seeking solution in another way that is unsustainable for environment, and we are investing into our third coal reserves, indigenous coal reserve. That will generate another crisis in coming years. That would be sustainability crisis. So we need to have this integrated approach where we seek the long-term horizon, and
definitely we have to gradually shift
Yep.
towards environmentally safe, friendly energy sources. Definitely. Engineer Tahir Basharat Cheema sahab, when we are talking about electricity generation, the power generation, and particularly when the government has an ambitious target of 30% to 60% generation by 2030. So how do you see, do you think that we are in line to achieve this target by 2030?
First of all, I would like to share the architecture of the Pakistan power sector or the infrastructure. Our power sector is not built per se to induct solar and wind power. Basically, it has been built over years, over decades rather, to take care of the best, of course, is the nuclear power and thermal power, and to a great extent, hydro generation. Meaning thereby that, first of all, we need to take care of the power sector's architecture so that it is able to invite, satiate, take care of renewable energy like solar and wind. Now, number one. Number two, we also need to understand that there is no magic trick or no magic at all in the whole world that somehow or the other we just move over to solar and wind and enjoy our lives and forget about everything. We'll have to remember that thermal or the traditional generation has to stay, but its ratio in the total fleet has to reduce. One. Secondly, we have to take care of the infrastructure, the grid itself, so that it is able to take care of, rather accept more renewable energy. Pakistan's, requirement or the policy to have at least 30% of its total generation moved over to the renewable energy by 30 is ambitious, but it is needed. Now, as I said earlier on, we have to take care of the infrastructure first and also take care of the intermittency of both solar and wind. They have issues. We need base load also. So one thing is very clear, it has to be a good combination, and 30% is presently very ambitious, but it is needed for us. Now, there is another thing. What happens is, unfortunately, we have had long-term power purchase agreements with most of the independent power producers. Now, those started for just 25 years, were thereafter tweaked to 30 years. And now all of the PPAs we have are for 30 years. The first of the batch of IPPs, which came on bar on the basis of the 1994 power policy, are due to retire from 27 onwards till 2030. That means we are still living with those, what to speak of the subsequent power stations, the thermal stations, which were set up under 2002 policy, and then under the 2013 and the 2015 policies.
Your point well taken. Your point well taken. Dr. Khalid, as Engineer Bashar Sahab has said, that we are already in love with IPPs. We are already there into the fossil fuel. That is one area. Then the national grid has to be acceptable for that particular alternative or renewable energy. Then transmission lines as well. So that is one issue. So if there is an ambitious target of 50% reduction of the carbon emissions, it means that we have to shift somewhere towards not only the energy sector, but also we have to shift in other areas towards environment friendly technologies. So do you think that we are going to achieve that 50% objective?
Well, I'm not sure about that we are going to achieve that target, but we should target towards achieving renewable energy in our generation mix because of the global climate debate and global macroeconomic shifts, and now the trade policy, the industrial policy in terms of global climate initiatives, they are now going to be linked with climate policies. Just an example, European Union has initiated a carbon border adjustment mechanism,
Definitely.
which means that all the exports or imports that are bound towards EU, they are now subject for an emission fee. If we are not catering this problem of national grid being dominated by fossil fuels, we are going to have a problem in 2030, and that is going to hurt our export competitiveness and industrial
overall trade
production as well. Second thing is that Pakistan, the major bottleneck in Pakistan system, as rightly pointed out by Engineer Saab, that our transmission system, what we can do is we can sort of invest in our transmission sector system at national level. At the same time, simultaneously, we can build these disaggregated, decentralized systems based on community grids, based on distribution generated generation. Distribution generation is a concept that you build power plants closer to the load centers. Just to give you an example, Pakistan's transmission system is built in such a way that we have cheaper energy sources either located in south or in north. In south we have coal plants and in north we have hydro plants, but our load centers, they are in the center of the country, Faisalabad, Gujranwala, Sialkot, Gujarat. These are the load centers of Pakistan, but we sort of transmit electricity generated from south up to the north and from north to the center. So this is the major bottleneck. What we can attract, or we can devise policy in such a way that we build power plants closer to the load centers, and those could be the blend of solar and wind, blend of micro hydel and solar and wind. That could be the innovative sort of solution. These are the options, these are the projects that can attract more and more green financing and renewable energy financing. Definitely. All over the world. Right. So this could be the integrated sort of policy if we want to solve this riddle of Pakistan's energy sector.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Tahir Bashar Sahab, when we are talking about producing energy mix more than at least 40,000 megawatt, but unfortunately the World Energy Council thinks that Pakistan's internal overall energy security ranking is just 99 out of 110. Why it is so? Why we are not energy secure country?
Let me, clear a few other things also. Pakistan started with distributed generation rather, and in order to, graduate and join the developed world, or at least the developing world, we came up with the national grid. National grid is wonderful. It is needed for a country like ours, right, which is elongated. It has mountains in the north and sands down under near the sea. So what happens is, there is a requirement to go for clean technologies. Clean technologies are available. It was only recently that I had an appraisal tour of the Thar coal mines, one, and the power plants based on that. I'm happy to report that clean coal technologies have been inducted over there, are being used over there, and the emissions are meeting the international standards. So whatever has to be done, it has to be clean, one. Secondly, when it comes to specifically the European Union, they have said that 2030 is the end game, as they say, but they are going to charge punitive carbon taxes from next year. Full of that, and we have to conduct more renewable. But for that, the state needs to, divert quite a huge sum for the buffeting of the national grid for NTDC, which is not evident at the moment. The NTDC and others are required to raise the funds through tariff, which may not be the right way at the moment, because the people of Pakistan cannot really take care of the prohibitive tariffs at the moment. So if some more cess or requirement is made to provide for the NTDC for the grid,
Definitely,
then
you are
it's
absolutely right, because that is not going to be a supportive way. Or obviously, it is very difficult for a political government to go for issues, but definitely we need investments on that particular account. So, Dr. Khalid, when we are talking about Pakistan's overall potential, Pakistan is blessed with lots of energy resources. Like we have a potential of at least 60,000 megawatts of hydro power. We have 40,000 megawatts of potential of solar. We have 3,46,000 megawatt potential from wind. But when we are going to exploit these resources?
Well, we want to exploit those resources, but major bottleneck is financing requirements because they need these projects, they need investments and capital cost. We need to attract these investments generating from within the country or outside the country. For that, we need to build a discourse of Pakistan's clean energy transition, not a discourse based on that we are using a clean coal. There is no clean coal. We need to sort of settle this argument. There are different initiatives in the world. For example, Just Energy Transition Partnerships that was initiated at COP26 Glasgow, in which G7 countries as well as their private sector, they sort of fund the countries in terms of concessional loans and blended financing options to have this achieve this clean energy transition. Just to give you an example, South Africa developed their Just Energy Transition Partnership program, about 80 billion USDs, and they sort of receive 8 billion USD to sort of early retire their coal power plants. Indonesia developed that, Senegal developed that, India is in a process to develop that program. Pakistan can look into that initiative as well. Another is Asian Development Bank's Energy Transition Mechanism. One more example is Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, which might be announced at COP29, going to be held this year at Baku, Azerbaijan. In that, the coal power plants, which engineers have also mentioned, that they are very young plants in Pakistan. They have a very big life in Pakistan. Those power plants can be early retired using that clean to coal credit initiative. In that way, they would be generating carbon credits, and that revenue can be used to replace them with renewable energy options. But we need to take care of the discourse. Second, we need to
definitely for that matter, you are absolutely right that on
well.
that matter, first of all, we need energy transition program, and then afterwards, obviously, if some sort of compensation would be there. So when we are talking primarily about Pakistan's generating 59% of its energy through fossil fuels, so why not to reduce this fossil fuel consumption? Their imports and have clean energy or renewable energy available. Whether we are just when we are talking about transition, so why not this thermal energy transition into the renewable energy?
Well, there are two or three main points to this question. First is obviously the grid, because grid is designed in such a way that that need a base load generated from either thermal or nuclear or hydro. So we need to have for a particular amount of time, we would be needing that base load. But what we can do is we can have these blend of solar and wind, blend of solar and hydro storage sort of systems, so that we can cater for that as well.
Obviously.
Second thing is that we need to sort of bring investments into our grid systems, because many countries, they are now going beyond 50% of variable renewable energy in their grid system through the innovative technologies, through digitalization of of their grid, through using of AI in the grid, through distributed generation, through sort of community grid systems.
I'll come to this point as well, artificial intelligence. Tahir Bishara Cheema sahab, Pakistan has abundant resources when it comes to the geothermal energy. So do you think that in Sindh, in Gilgit-Baltistan, in Balochistan, we can initially generate 15,000 of the megawatt from geothermal? So do you think that we are going to exploit or have any plan on that account?
First of all, we'll have to remember no finance, no earthwide finance, which is not expensive, is not going to come to Pakistan any soon. So the state has to help assist the grid, otherwise nothing is going to change. One. Now, secondly, coming over to the geothermal potential in Pakistan, it is amongst the low potentials in the world. It is not that much, and it also needs investment. But I'll tell you one thing, share it with the viewers, that we have many, you know, depleted gas and oil wells which can be used for this thing. We are working on it, and probably about 2000 megawatts of geothermal energy can be harnessed in the next 5 years. But anything more than that will be very, very ambitious.
So, Tahir Bashar Cheema sahab, Pakistan has now 5.7 million or trillion, 5.7 trillion rupees of the circular debt. So, do you think that using renewable or alternative energy will reduce Pakistan's circular debt as well as the import bill, will give low cost energy to the consumer, to the industry, to other which actually direly needed over there? So, do you think that it changes the game for Pakistan?
It isn't easy at all, because we have to bear the brunt of the existing PPAs or throw all of the PPAs outside. There'll be retributions, there'll be issues, but either you do that or you keep on accepting that for the times to come. I mean, it is not, the panacea which people think that you just attract renewables. You need money for that. You need finance to bolster the grid. You need to pay for the new renewable energy plants also. Just adding like 15% till 30 is again very ambitious. We have to be practical, and for that practicality, there is a requirement for the national budget to make space for bolstering the grid and for attracting more renewables. We cannot just rely on theoretical theories and all that. We have to be...
Obviously, you are absolutely very right. So, Engineer Tahir Bishara Cheema sahab, thank you very much for being online for us, and thank you very much for your precious time and well deliberated. Thank you, so nice of you. Dr. Khalid, when we are talking about, as Engineer Sahab has rightly said, and you were earlier mentioning about, that we have to rectify actually ourselves. We have to go for an enhancement in the national grid and a transmission line, as well as we have to be ready for the latest technologies, the cutting edge technologies like artificial intelligence, the fintech and all others, to incorporate into the energy sector, to have a robust energy sector in future. How do you see that?
Well, let me start with the distribution sector. The circular debt, about 80% of that originates from the distribution sector, where we cannot have this, recoveries, and we have inefficient distribution companies. What we can do is we can sort of decrease their service areas. We can run them on corporate principles. We can bring competition to those distribution companies, and then we can sort of provide them with revenues to build these innovative and state-of-art sort of technology solutions in terms of prepaid meters, in terms of bringing AI or whatsoever. But that would not only contain Pakistan's circular debt problem, but also bring competition, and that would be also bringing more and more corporate principles into the distribution companies. That is the point at distribution companies level. Then coming to transmission sector, transmission system, we need to sort of develop our national transmission and dispatch company in such a way that they have this distinctively available functions, that is system operator as well as the dispatch company.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
We need to have this
when we are
supply
talking about
company as well.
on that front, it is absolute. Viewers, we welcome here Dr. Hasnain Javed. He is the senior economist joining us online. Most welcome to you, Dr. Hasnain. And straight away, my first question is related to the China's political leadership that is now accelerating the most sustainable and resilient energy future. So how Pakistan can get advantage to get partnership in green technologies, finance mechanisms and collaborative overall partnerships in the energy sector with the Chinese companies and with the overall framework of CPAC?
That's a very pertinent question, and almost, for example, if I say about that, the power sector, we need much greater partnership and foreign direct investment in that sector. And just for your show, and I have made the specific working paper on that. Like for example, if for example China is investing a renewable energy sector over there here in Pakistan, although they are into the coal power projects and the hydropower projects, and hats off and salute to Chinese government that after this terrorist attack they are still onto the move and they are with us. So this is what we call Patian, the iron friendship. Now moving on to the other chapters, according to the GOP, so figure the cost of the energy transition will be $101 billion. So by 2030, an additional $65 billion by 2040. So based on completion of the progress, renewable energy projects, additional hydropower transmission, as my respected panel is talking about the transmission lines, of course, that also can be included. And passing out the coal by replacing it with the hydropower and GOP in 2021, the cost breakdown of these areas, including NDCs. So
yes,
here your listener must have to listen very carefully, and all of the business people or the business community who wanted to invest in the hydropower, and same as particular with and they must have to consider two things. Pakistan is on the GDP. They evaluate all of this cost analysis on the base of GDP, and China is on the Lee Kai-shek model. So I just wanted to suggest Pakistani people, Pakistani business community to learn something about the Lee Kai-shek model, how they have to translate these transactions into the Lee Kai-shek model. So very important thing is power, hydropower. For rapid expansion and renewable of the hydropower reaching 60% production of the 2030 would require an estimated investment of $50 billion by 2023 and $80 billion in 2040. So transmission as estimated 20 million would be required by upgraded the transmission network by 2040. So there is a much gap. We are only use of the 4% now. Initially, it was just on the 1%. Now we increased by that level. We are using into the solar power. We are into bagasse, but still there is a gap. Now moving on to the passing out the coal, buying out the new coal power project, including the local third coal mine, would have upfront estimate cost of the 18 billion. I'm not critically talking about the Saibal project, and there are few hurdles, but so far there is no need to talk about the hurdles. We are here to solve the problem. Now, this figure could increase the share of...
Absolutely right. Dr. Hasnain, when we are talking about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is that flagship project has given impetus to the renewable and alternative energy in Pakistan. That's why we have witnessed that we have in Thatta, in Jampir, and other areas, there were the wind corridors, we have the solar parks, we have the hydro projects going on. So how do you see this potential, and how do you see the future of alternative energy or renewable energy in Pakistan in terms of CPAC?
I'm coming on the very same part. Like for example, if I mean specifically talking about the key energy projects under the CPAC and the Gwadar. So very first is the Port Qasim coal power project located near Karachi, and Port Qasim coal power project is about the 1,320 megawatt coal power fired projects. So it aims enhance Pakistan electricity generation capacity and contribute to meeting the country energy demand. That's the one part. Of course, the energy. The main course whenever I talk is the hydro, and I'm very much in the favor of hydro. But to the alternative energy, of course, coal and solar is my the second most top priority. And then talking about the Sahiwal coal power project, that is again with collaboration with the China or under the CPAC. The Sahiwal coal power project situated in Punjab province created 1,320 megawatt coal fire power plant, and it played significant role in diversifying Pakistan energy mix and reducing resilience on reliance on the imported fuels. The biggest problem of the Pakistan is a high rate of imported fuel. So considering the fact that third block two, which you are referring and what you are talking about is the third block two coal mining and power plant project. So this third block two coal mining and power plant project is based in the third desert of the Sindh province, and it involves the mining operations and developing of the 1,320 megawatt coal-fired power plant to utilize the indigenous coal resource. Fourth is the Marti Lahore high voltage, direct current, what we call it HVDC transmission line project. So that is Marti Lahore is a HVDC transmission line project aimed to transmit electricity from the southern Punjab to Lahore in the north. So it would be the very best of for the Pakistan.
Definitely, Dr. Hasnain, you are absolutely right. We are actually you are focusing on the import bill, which is very high, and also the transmission lines in the national grid, which we were already talking about. As Dr. Hasnain said, Dr. Khalid, he was actually emphasizing upon nationally determined contributions, which NDCs, and that suggests, as Dr. Hasnain said, the US dollar 110 billion. That is required actually, that is required investments into the greener growth, renewable and even alternative energy achievement. So do you think from where that would come, how it would be possible?
Well, out of that 101 billion USDs, Pakistan needs to generate most of them coming from outside of Pakistan. But we need to have a mechanism which can generate domestically as well. One very important thing is that we sort of consider electricity as a derived demand, and we sort of build electricity sector pulling from or taking lead from the industrial policy of Pakistan, and we sort of enhance the share of industrial sector in terms of electricity consumption. If you see the trends in Pakistan, Pakistan have this contrary trend as compared to China and other developing and developed countries, where the industry's ratio in power consumption is higher than the residential or domestic sector. But Pakistan has 50% of domestic sector consuming Pakistan's total energy consumption. So we need to sort of build our industry and associate it, integrate it with Pakistan's power generation, and then we can have this growth coupled with industrial production. And
definitely, when we are talking about NDCs, China has a very unique contribution in Pakistan's energy sector over the last many years. So how do you see that 8,000 of the megawatt we are right now producing out of the CPAC project? So how do you see Chinese contribution into that?
Well, Chinese contribution can be seen into two-pronged approach. First is that we need to attract more and more Chinese manufacturing and industrial units into already built special economic zones under the CPAC, and we need to integrate those special economic zones with our national grid or a distributive generation system based on renewable energy. That could not only increase Pakistan's industrial share as well as Pakistan's renewable energy expansion as well. Second is that China can invest into Pakistan's transmission sector just like they did in Lahore Mitiari transmission line.
Definitely. Dr. Saab was mentioning about,
That could solve Pakistan's transmission bottlenecks. Third, very important is that China has recently built under its Belt and Road Initiative. That initiative is known as Green Investment and Finance Partnership GIFP initiative. Under that, China has allocated 100 billion USDs for renewable energy revolution in developing countries. Pakistan can be part of it under CPEC, and Pakistan can develop wind, solar,
definitely.
and
you are absolutely right.
SIFC would be
absolutely
very important.
Absolutely right. Dr. Hasnain, when we are talking about Chinese contribution and overall CPEC projects, Gawada is the epicenter of the CPEC when we are talking about overall development of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. How do you see Gawada as a latest model energy city in future with the AI technologies, with all other latest cutting edge technologies, and to use renewable and alternative energy to have power in Gawada so that an example to the world that a developing country developed a city which is solely based upon renewable or alternative energy?
See, this is very important. I mean, just try to, I can give you an example. I have visited so many companies here in China. So, multi-billion dollar companies, I mean, I have seen just 8 people or 9 people. So, I just ask about, I mean, a huge power project are working here. And where are the, I mean, 3,000 plus or 4,000 plus. I expected, I mean, much human resource over here, but there is nothing. So after that, the robust technology, the AI technology, they have it's a complete automation. So same as they have designed all these projects over there in Gawada, it is already been done. The infrastructure has been done. The fiber optics has been done. And believe in me, it's all in process. It's about to execute. Now, whatever the pressures externally, that's a different issue, but we are very much ready, and China is very much ready to operationalize all these projects. As you know, that the Gawada coal power projects, they are up to it. And that Gawada coal power project and other projects, what we call it renewable energy, and that is one very important point they have pointed out, which is like, for example, we have taken the solar power projects into third area. So that there is a very technical point that if there is a high heat, so solar power project cannot work. And if there is a low heat, it also cannot work. So the very best area is in Balochistan. So you just have to rectify and make the feasibility that there is much area to get the solar power project into the Balochistan area, but because the heat distribution and the MBTU, VTU, that's technical terms. So it can decide that the normative, solar is coming over there, and that would be the feasible part we can move on to. So initially, the third power where we started this unit, it was a complete loss because the feasibility was not accurate at that time. Now we have to identify the technical areas, and now we have the AI technology, robust technology, and other things.
Dr. Hasnain, if you briefly tell us about that, what we have to learn from our Chinese friends right now into the energy sector, particularly into the renewable and alternative energy. If you quickly briefly tell us about that.
Yeah. I know that whenever you ask me any question, I go into details which consume your time. But yes, wind energy. So wind energy is very much important for, of course, the Pakistan possesses considerable wind energy resource, and particularly along its coastal area in the northern region, and wind power project both onshore and offshore. That is very much important because harness in the renewable energy resource, and that's again you have give an example of the Jimpur wind corridor in the Sindh, and the significant hub of the wind energy development, hosting several wind farms. But it could be the limited. That's what I'm saying is that we should transform, and we should transfer this into the Balochistan sector. Then is a biomass. Obviously. And I'm not talking about the hydropower. The biomass energy is very much important. Bagasse is very much important. And the biomass energy is derived from the organic material. So it is very much important. So the multiple solid waste hold promises and renewable energy source that can give us maximum output on that area.
You
So
are
whatsoever I'm
absolutely right.
yeah.
You are absolutely right. My last question is related to the overall comprehensive policy reforms encompassing regulatory frameworks, the fiscal initiatives, incentives, and ease of doing business into the energy sector. That is vital actually to attract domestic and foreign investments into the, particularly into the renewable and alternative energy. How do you see this important aspect?
Yeah, see, very important. I mean, I would request SIFC first and whosoever is under the Ministry of Energy to provide an action plan of promotion of the renewable energy sector in regulatory framework, including the consolidated fiscal framework. Fiscal framework is very much important because if there is no feasibility report, you cannot make the fiscal framework. So the action plan should be prepared in the consultation with the providence and with other province and consultation with the other province within the fixed time frame. Fixed time frame is very much important, otherwise the cost of the project goes up. So that is very much important. So accelerate competitive bidding auctions for the first set of the solar and wind energy projects in the line with the generation capacity and expansion of the plan, which would what I call it IGCEP. So organize intensive capacity building to the finance management provision and CTB process changes, subsidies, and contract management for the renewable energy. Then is a coordinate action plan to ensure the evacuation of the plan of the wind and solar energy are to track for the timely execution. Then very important thing, and thank you for the patience.
You are absolutely right.
I'm on to the very last point, is the establishment of the synergic framework to greater RE expansion in the key sectors such as renewable energy and agriculture. That is called agrivoltaic. Agrivoltaic solar sharing or the vertical farming on a renewable energy in a water and sanitation, and develop a comprehensive policy for domestic manufacturing of a renewable energy products with an emphasis on a localization target. So that
Very
can
important point.
comprehensively
Very important point. Dr. Hasnain, very important point. Dr. Khalid, if you want to add something into that, into the policy framework, overall regulatory frameworks, what the Ministry of Energy has to do, and especially the special SIFC, Special Investment Facilitation Council, to bring investments into the country?
Well, I would say 2 points. Dr. Saab has mentioned in a very eloquent way. 2 points. One is we need to have integrated energy plan that is not only catered for power sector, but also the other sector which consume energy, that is transportation, that is cooking, and that is our industrial heat. We need to sort of integrate those sector into that as well. Pakistan has enough capacity. We can sort of integrate that capacity and utilize that capacity into electric vehicles, into electrifying our cooking practices, and sort of electrifying our industrial heat as well.
Obviously.
So we need to take care of that as well. Lastly, we need to have take into account the aspect of energy governance in Pakistan. Pakistan has about 22 energy companies in Pakistan in terms of SOEs, state-owned enterprises. Out of that 22 companies, 17 companies went into deficit. Only 5 companies are in surplus. So we need to establish and bring corporate principles into those SOEs or privatize those companies. Last point, that we need to ensure competition at all tiers of the electricity generation, transmission, and distribution, so that the end user can be sort of get benefit from
Definitely
those
a competitive
practices.
environment into the energy sector. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for being here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Hasnain, for being with us online. Thank you very much for your contribution as well. Viewers, as you all know, that Pakistan has an abundant potential when it comes to the renewable and alternative energy. There are untapped potential of renewable energy resources is nearly, as we have mentioned, 60,000 megawatts from the hydropower, 40,000 megawatts of the solar, and obviously 3,46,000 megawatts of the wind energy, and etc. There are lots of other resources available to reduce carbon emission, import bill, electricity cost, circular debt as well, and to create a win-win situation for the entire industry, agriculture, domestic consumer, and for the government as well. It is important that we have to focus on renewable energy and alternative energy resources. That is very vital to exploit particularly. As our panelists suggested that we have to just focus on environment, energy, economy, 3 E's, that is very important into macroeconomic policies. Invest in national grid along with the transmission lines, because we have lots of transmission losses, and along with that the national grid has to be acceptable for the alternative and renewable energy as well. Then introduction of the clean technologies into the energy sector, that is vital. Energy transition program must have to be started so that we must have to shift towards environment friendly energy resources. At least as one of the panelists said, that geothermal is a bit expensive, but 2000 of the megawatt of the energy could be generated through those empty wells which are already there, which have some sort of the gas or the fuel resources available. Then action plan is required to have renewable energy resources and alternative energy. Integrated energy plan must have to be there. Energy governance is needed, and it is important that we have to fix our problems, particularly in the policy and the framework issue. So this is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.